Yo, what is good, people? Ben from Lover of Tech, and we are back with another video. This time, camera comparison. Freeway between the Pixel 8 Pro versus the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. And again, we're going to test it freeway and see how these cameras perform in daylight and low light for videos and photos with the rear camera and front-facing camera. Quick camera specs, we're going to get back into the camera comparison. Quick breakdown of the camera hardware and specs, starting with the Pixel 8 Pro. It is working with a new 50 megapixel main sensor, a new 48 megapixel ultra wide, and an improved 48 megapixel 5x optical zoom with a 10.5 megapixel selfie. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is working with a 48 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a new 5x 12 megapixel zoom, and also a 12 megapixel selfie. And the Galaxy S23 Ultra is working with a massive 200 megapixel main wide sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 10 megapixel 3x zoom, a 10 megapixel 10x optical zoom, and a 12 megapixel selfie. The best way to watch this camera comparison is at the highest resolution and frame rate at 4K 60 with headphones on a larger display. If possible, there will be chapters linked in the description below. And yes, this is a big one. This is probably my longest camera comparison. So sit back, relax, get your meal, get your popcorn, get your drink, watch it all the way through because it's going to be a good one. So we are starting off with the front-facing camera in 4K UHD 60 frames per second on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the Pixel 8 Pro, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Seeing how the image quality is like, stabilization, colors, detail, and dynamic range. Quick run. We've now switched over to the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recorder mode on the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Again, just seeing how the image quality, stabilization, detail, and colors, as well as dynamic range, is like. Quick run. We are still recording in the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recorder mode on a selfie camera on a Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now the difference is the iPhone 15 Pro Max is in the cinematic video portrait mode with the background blur, as well as the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which also has the background blur. Still disappointing to see that the Pixel 8 Pro does not have the ability to do cinematic video on a selfie camera. It can do on a rear camera. It's still limited to just 1080p, no 4K option. Now, the difference between the iPhone and the Samsung, if you've seen any of my camera comparisons before, is with the Samsung, while you're recording, you've got the option to remove the blur completely or apply it to whatever strength you like, up to 7, back to the default 5. You can also put different portrait background blur effects on while you're recording. Now, the iPhone allows you to make changes before you start recording. While you're recording, you can't make any changes. The default simulated blur effect is f4.5, but once you finish recording, you can actually change the blur intensity and the blur positions as well. So that's the power of the iPhone and the flexibility of the Galaxy S23 when you're using this mode. And again, the Pixel is just lacking it altogether on the selfie camera. So we're recording in a 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recording mode on the rear cameras on the Pixel 8 Pro, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra, seeing how the colors, detail, stabilization, dynamic range is like. Quick run. We're going to switch to the ultra wide. The ultra wide on all three. You've got that flexibility to do that while still recording on the same clip. Quick run. Moving over to the 2X. And then to the 5X zoom. Number 3. This is actually 3X on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. And we're going to extend it all the way to the 10X the Galaxy S23 Ultra, just so you can see the reach difference between the three. Let's go back to the main camera lens, and we're going to run through some benefits and differences when you're recording in 4K 30 on all three cameras. Now, with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra and the Pixel, you've got the ability to stop recording or pause recording on the same clip and continue recording on the same clip without stopping. You can take pictures at the same time. You can do this on an iPhone where you can take pictures, but you can't pause the video on the same clip. And the difference with the Samsung is you can actually flip to the selfie camera while you're recording on the same clip in 4K 30. I'm going to demonstrate that to you now. So as you can see, we're still recording on the same clip with 4K 30. You can pause recording, continue recording, all on the same clip and take pictures, and then flip back to the selfie camera or the rear camera. We've now switched over to the 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode on the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Again, just seeing how the image quality changes when you switch up to the 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode, as well as stabilization, colors, dynamic range, and detail. Quick run. So, here's where you're going to see some of the limitations and quirks and improvements between these three camera systems when you are recording in 4K UHD 60 frames per second. Both the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max do allow you to switch between the lenses while you're recording in 4K 60 without stopping recording to switch. The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra does not allow you to do this. What you're seeing here is a crop on the main sensor that we started with up to 10x, but we cannot switch to the ultra wide like what we've done with the iPhone and the Pixel. Now, credit to Google. Google did do this first out of all these three camera manufacturers last year with the Pixel 7 Pro. So they've carried it on from before. You can still pause recording while also continue on the same clip on the Pixel, but you can't do that on the iPhone. But again, you can go to the 1x, 2x, 5x, 1x, 2x, 5x with much smoother transitions on the iPhone. And this is all in 4K 60. What's the benefit of shooting 4K 60 on the Samsung Galaxy S23? It's really down to the fact that you can pause recording and continue on the same clip, take pictures, and switch to the front-facing camera while you're recording. As demonstrated, this is the flexibility you get with the Samsung device. You do have the ability to flip to the selfie while recording in 4K 60 and switch back to the rear lens that you started on, but you can't switch between the other lenses unless you stop recording and continue. I hope that makes sense. Let me demonstrate that to you now. We've now switched to the ultra-wide angle camera in 4K UHD 60 frames per second on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, Pixel 8 Pro, and Galaxy S23 Ultra. This is more for the benefit of the Galaxy S23 Ultra, since you do have to stop recording and start again to switch lenses in 4K 60. Quick run. Again, as stated, with the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro, you do have the ability to switch between the different lenses. It's a lot smoother. So let's switch to the telephoto lenses. So we are in the 2x mode, which is an optical digital lossless crop on the main camera sensor on all three camera systems. Just doing a slow walk, just seeing how they're like. So we've now switched to the 5x optical zoom mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, 5x on the Pixel 8 Pro, and 3x to start with on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. What we're going to do is we're going to punch in digitally to 5. this is how we're looking when it comes to the 3 camera systems. And again, we're in the 5x zoom mode on the iPhone and the Pixel compared to the 10x zoom on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which you can see the difference in extended zoom when you're in 4K 60. And we're seeing the reach. So we are now in the 8K 30 frames per second video recorder mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra versus the 4K 30 on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Just showcasing how Samsung have been able to produce usable 8K video compared to the previous Galaxy S22 Ultra with minimal to no field of view crop, stabilization, no roll and shutter effect, and excellent detail. Quick run. We are now in the action mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max versus the active stabilization on the Pixel 8 Pro, as well as the super steady mode on the S23 Ultra. Here's the difference. With the iPhone, you can shoot at 2.8K up to 60 frames a second in the action mode. In the super steady mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, you can shoot this at 2.5K, aka 1440p QHD, up to 60 frames a second. Pixel 8 Pro is still limited to just 1080p 30 with no QHD option, either in 30 or 60 FPS. And even in 1080p, it's still limited to 30 FPS. We're gonna do a super run start on the ultra wide and 1x on the Pixel, ultra wide on the S23 Ultra, and see how it goes. So same settings as before for the action mode, super steady, as well as active stabilization, but now on a 1x for the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Fast run. Same settings again as before, but we are now in the 2x mode on all 3 camera systems. Let's see how the stabilization is like. Fast run. Same settings as before. This is where the iPhone 15 Pro Max wins because it does allow you to do this mode on the 5x optical zoom. The others do not allow you to use it on their optical sensors, whether it's the 5x on the Pixel 8 Pro, the 3x or the 10x on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Let's see it at work. Samsung does allow you to switch between the lenses, whereas the iPhone doesn't. Here's the difference. The Pixel does as well. So we're now recording in a 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recorder mode on the rear camera. Start with the main camera sensor on the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Again, with me in the frame as a subject, we're just seeing how it handles how I look, as well as the scene, and pretty much seeing how we go from there. Okay, in 4K 30 we do have maximum flexibility, so we're going to switch to the ultra wide on all 3 camera systems. And just seeing how the image quality is like, everything's changed when in the ultra wide mode. And back to the 1x. We've now switched to the 2x zoom mode on all 3 camera systems. This is obviously doing a 2x lossless crop on the main camera sensors in 4K 30, just seeing how the image quality is like. Again, remember in this mode you do have flexibility to switch between all 3 lenses, from the 1x to the 2x mode to the ultra wide, but we just obviously stopped it to reframe properly so it's easy for you to see. Okay, so we are still in the 4K 30 frames per second video recorder mode. We're stationary for this one. We're doing a 5x on the 15 Pro Max, 5x on the Pixel 8 Pro, and starting with the 3x optical zoom on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Okay people, this is the 10x optical zoom mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra versus the 5x on the Pixel and the iPhone. Just see the image quality difference between 4K 30. We're going to try and zoom in as much as possible on the iPhone and the Pixel without having to frame issues. See where the difference is. So we're now switched over to the 8K video recorder mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra versus the 4K 30 on the Pixel 8 Pro and the 4K 30 on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now with me in the subject, we just want to see how the image quality is like. So we're going to do a slow walk back and just see how they handle it. So we are now in the respective video portrait mode on the Pixel 8 Pro, the Galaxy S23 Ultra, as well as the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Yes, as stated, the Pixel 8 Pro is still limited to just 1080p, 24 FPS. There's no 4K option, no 30 FPS option, and you can't really change the intensity of the blur in any particular way. Whereas with the iPhone, you can change the blur after you finish recording. The Samsung does allow you to change the blur while you're actually recording. So if we demonstrate that now, we can actually change the blur from the default from 5 all the way down to 0, where it's completely off. Then you can go all the way up to 7, which is the highest. You can of course come back to the default, which is 5, where we started. And of course you can apply the different portrait mode effects from the standard blur. And this is obviously while you're recording. You can't do that on the iPhone, but again, the iPhone does allow you to change the blur properties and intensity after you finish recording in edit. Both the iPhone and the Samsung do give you the option to record in 4K up to 30 frames a second, whereas the Pixel is still limited to 1080p. Slow walk. So we're showcasing the advancements that you have in a video portrait mode and a cinematic video on the iPhone 15 Pro Max and obviously on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. With the iPhone, you do have the option to shoot in the 2x mode, whereas you don't have a 2x on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. But the iPhone, although it doesn't show it in the camera UI, you can do a continuous zoom to 3x in the video portrait mode to match that of the Samsung. So as you can see, the video portrait mode and the background blur effect is much more robust and flexible on the iPhones and the Samsung, whereas Pixel is still stuck in 1080p and only on the main camera sensor. We're now recording in 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode on the rear camera with the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra, with me in the frame as the subject. Start with the main camera lens. So walk back. Now again, We're going to show the flexibility that you get on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. While you're recording in 4K 60, you can switch to the ultra-wide lens. This is still a limitation on the Galaxy S23 Ultra as demonstrated before. You do have to stop recording completely and then start by switching. Still in 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode on the rear camera. We've now switched to the ultra wide, again mainly for the benefit of the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and just seeing how the image quality is like with me in the frame as the subject. Let's slow walk back. Still in 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode, now in the 2x optical crop mode on the main camera sensors. Still in 4K UHD 60 frames per second, 5x on the Pixel 8 Pro, 5x on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and starting with the 3x zoom mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Zoom on the Pixel 8 Pro, 15 Pro Max. So we are now recording in a 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recorder mode on the rear cameras on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, Pixel 8 Pro, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. I'm just seeing how the lens flare works with the lights. And we switch to the ultra wide. Two X mode. 2X mode. X, 3X. And then 10X. And 1X mode. And we're recording in the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recorder mode on a selfie camera. Again, just seeing how the low light performance is like between the three. So let's move over to the photos, starting with the daytime images between the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. And we're going to start with the daylight landscape images. And if we look at this one here, we're starting with the ultra wide angle lens. And I will say that in terms of just what gives the most natural looking image, I will say the Pixel 8 Pro does a really good job. I think all of them really do. Samsung does have a slightly more vibrant and saturated image, especially when you look at the skies. And the iPhone 15 Pro Max actually catches a nice balance, slightly saturated, sits somewhere in between what you get with the Pixel 8 Pro and also the Galaxy S23 Ultra. We move over to the main wide lens, and it seems to be quite consistent. The Pixel 8 Pro has gone for a more contrasted image, slightly darker, slightly more saturated on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and a good balance on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We'll move over to the 2x situation here. This is doing a lossless crop on a main high resolution sensors with the Galaxy S23 Ultra using a 200 megapixel sensor. Then you've got a 50 megapixel sensor, which is new on the Pixel 8 Pro, and a 48 megapixel main sensor on the 15 Pro Max. And all of them are actually doing quite a decent job. I will say potentially Samsung looks a lot better to me in my eyes, and the color consistency and how it does that stays consistent. Let's move over to the 3x zoom mode, and here is where we're seeing that the Galaxy S23 Ultra does use the dedicated 3x zoom lens that it does have, compared to what we have with the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. They are still cropping on the main sensor, and you can instantly see that the Samsung just does have a much better image. There's, you know, it's just much clearer, much better overall. So that's the benefit of having a dedicated lens. Now things switch up a little bit, because once we move over to the 5x zoom mode, the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max in daylight are using their dedicated 5x zoom lens, whereas the Samsung is now cropping on the 3x lens because it's got a longer distance before we get to the 10x. And we can see that here, things really shape up well. I really like the look of the Pixel 8 Pro. It really holds up well. The iPhone also holds up really well. Samsung actually isn't doing not too bad itself, but overall, I would definitely say the Pixel 8 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max hold it well. Next, we are moving over to the different exchange of zoom ranges. So now we're still at 5x, and then you've got the Galaxy S23 Ultra kicking in at 10x. So you can see that it has a much further reach, and the clarity, especially in daylight, is so much better compared to the other two. And this is something that the benefit of having a short mid-range and an extended zoom with the periscope zoom lens really helps with the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Let's extend it a bit here. If we're matching up the 10x to both the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro, I will say they're actually holding up very well, especially the Pixel when it comes to the super res zoom tech that they're using to oversample and clean up the image. It matches up a lot closer than I expected to the Samsung. The iPhone 15 Pro Max punches in a little bit more, but in the extended zoom range, we can see that the iPhone goes up to 25x maximum, Pixel 8 Pro is 30x maximum, as well as 30x max on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. If we're matching it all together here, we can see that the Galaxy S23 Ultra is still holding up well, then followed by the Pixel 8 Pro, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And of course, you do have the extended 100x digital zoom mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which, you know, how often you're going to use it is one thing, but really shows and flexes its muscle when it comes to the extended zoom range. Okay, let's take a look at their high resolution photo mode, which now the Pixel does have the ability to shoot 50 megapixel JPEGs and RAWs. And in fact, it does this on a main wide sensor, the ultra wide, and also the 5x telephoto zoom, which you're going to be seeing later on as I demonstrate that. In this particular case, I will say that the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max really process it a lot better. Samsung is actually doing a good job. It's gone for a much more darker, more contrasty based image, still slightly more saturated than the other two. But I will say that I actually like the balance of the Pixel 8 Pro on this particular one, followed by the 15 Pro Max. Now, the 200 megapixel JPEG mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra in this situation is the one I definitely like most. You're getting so much more detail. The colors balance out really well. Dynamic range is good. Detail is exceptional. But the other two match up pretty much, you know, the same as what we saw before. But the 200 megapixel JPEG mode in this situation, yeah, is the one I prefer the most on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now, as stated in Showcase, the Pixel 8 Pro does have the ability to shoot 50 megapixel JPEGs on the ultra wide angle lens. This is a level of flexibility that's really good because it does have 3 high resolution sensors at the back for the main wide, the ultra wide, and the 5x zoom. So that's great flexibility to see Google adding this. I really love to see it. And it's gonna come in handy for different situations, which I will explain later on, but this is a good look. This particular situation is a direct shot against the sun. And this is more to test how all 3 phones manage dynamic range, especially shadow detail, as well as lens flare. And you can see that the Pixel 8 Pro is not exhibiting any lens flare. It's the one that's pretty much managing shadow details really good. And I know back in the day, Pixel struggled with this, but it looks like they fixed it with this new sensor and the processing, which I'm really glad, followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and then the iPhone 15 Pro Max in that particular order, because you do see a little bit of a lens flare on the iPhone.
Yeah, really impressed with the Pixel here. And we switch to the ultra wide. We can see that things stay consistent. Things clean up a little bit better on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but yeah, man, the shadow detail. If you look at the person sitting under the tree on the left, you can see that the Pixel 8 Pro is visible. This is phenomenal ultra wide performance directly against the sun. I would say that in terms of sun exposure control, the iPhone 15 Pro Max does a better job, then followed by the S23 Ultra. But I would say the overall image, I'm taking the Pixel 8 Pro all day long in this ultra wide. Here's some close-up shots of the flower before we get into the macro mode. Now again, in terms of minimum focus and distance, the iPhone 15 Pro Max really struggles in this department, and that seems to be a consistent thing. I really hope they fix it next time. It was a problem on the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max, still a problem with the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max in this particular situation. Pixel 8 Pro does a great job because it gives a natural bokeh depth of field blur to the image, and followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra, where the Pixel 8, I would say, definitely wins here. Now you see that when you get closer with the main camera lens, this is what you're getting. It blurs out and you suffer the minimum focusing issue where you have to be a certain distance. Now, I would say that of course the iPhone has a worse problem when it comes to this, and then followed by the Pixel 8 Pro, and then obviously the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now I would say in this situation, there's where macro mode is really needed and you can really get up close and personal. I still wish the Pixel 8's macro control was not in the center of the screen and it was actually slightly lower to the other camera controls, but away from that, you've got control over it. It's really good in that retrospect, and all three of them do a great job in my opinion. Let me know which one you prefer in the comment section below. Pushing through, let's move over to some selfies now. And we're doing this particular one, and you can see that the Pixel 8 Pro does have the widest field of view, followed by the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. I don't know, it's a hard one to pick. I would say probably overall, it's somewhere between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro. Maybe I'm not liking how the color cast on the Pixel 8 Pro in this particular situation so much. It's a hard one to pick. The Galaxy S23 Ultra does look good. It does saturate the sky a little bit more. Some of that might be more eye-catching. Yeah, it's a hard one to pick with this one. Portrait mode. So portrait mode kicks in, and this is a situation where I think all of them do a great job. Which one do I prefer? I would probably say the Pixel potentially, then followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra, then the iPhone. More just because of the fact that the iPhone does make my skin tones a bit too dark in that retrospect. In this less of a backlit situation, I would definitely say all three of them are doing a great job. Definitely prefer the look of the Pixel. The skin tones are spot on, and this is something that does really well. And I think that's what I'm going to be drawn to the most when it comes to the portrait mode performance for the selfie. Last set of daylight shots with the rear camera with me in the frame as the subject, with the main wide sensor on all three. Definitely, man, the Pixel is just winning it for me when it comes to skin tones. This situation, we're really focusing on me as the subject of matter, right? And in that order, it's definitely the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra in that order, if I'm looking at the subject, right? But the overall scene, I'll definitely say that the iPhone is more color accurate to the scene. But yeah, I would definitely prefer the Pixel 8 Pro in this particular situation. The ultra wide, the Samsung doesn't really have that much of an ultra wide field of view compared to the other two. Again, I think in terms of consistency, definitely Pixel 8 Pro in this particular one. But all three of them actually do a great job in terms of the overall final output. But I'll definitely prefer the Pixel 8 Pro on this particular one. Now we're moving into the 2x lossless crop on the main wide sensor. And yeah, definitely still consistent again. Pixel skin tones is really, really on point. It's something seems a bit off when it comes to the skin tones on the Samsung, even though the environment is really pleasing in that retrospect. And again, the iPhone just makes me look slightly a bit too dark for my liking, even though the color accuracy of things like the jacket and the scenes is really on par. Next is the 3x zoom mode. And this is where, although things stayed consistent with the colors, which I won't mention again, the clarity and the detail you're getting from the Samsung is unquestionable, just for the sake of the fact that it does have a dedicated 3x zoom lens. Whereas in this range at 3x, Pixel 8 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max are cropping in on their main camera sensor. So the natural detail just isn't there compared to what Samsung are producing. And when we go over to the 5x zoom mode, it reverses. Now, the optical sensors on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max kick in compared to the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which you can see that it's losing a bit of detail because it's using that 3x dedicated zoom to crop into 5x, whereas those are using a dedicated zoom lenses at 5x. So you can definitely see the clarity. Pixel 8 Pro is looking excellent, followed by the iPhone, which actually gives a nice looking natural blur. In the 10x zoom mode, this is a really far extended one. You're doing a digital crop with the super res zoom on the Pixel 8 Pro compared to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is just zooming in on the 5x dedicated. And of course, in terms of the clarity, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra definitely takes it. It's a tight one, but yeah, it's definitely the one where it takes it at this particular one with the better looking image. Let's run it back, and we are in portrait mode. One thing to be aware of is the Pixel 8 Pro doesn't actually shoot portrait mode in a 1x mode. It crops in 1.5x and there's a 2x mode. So just be aware of that in that retrospect, right? But the results are really nice on it. I'll definitely say the look of the blur on the iPhone it just feels more realistic and more pleasing. The edge detection is good on Samsung as well, especially if you look at the gaps, nails it. But overall, I will say that all three of them have their characteristics where they are good. I like the colors of the Pixel 8 Pro, but again, it loses just a lot of detail with the crop and how it processes portrait mode. Now in the 2x mode, I'll definitely say in this particular one, I actually like the overall look of the Samsung. Again, color stays consistent where I prefer the skin tones of the Pixel 8 Pro, then followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The problem is the detail that you're losing with the crop and how it processes on the Pixel 8 that I don't like, but I like the clarity of the Galaxy S23 Ultra. We're going to move over to the 3x dedicated zoom when it comes to the digital crop in 3x for portrait mode. And yeah, Samsung wins it all day. The 3x portrait mode on a dedicated zoom lens is such a sweet spot for portrait mode. It's one of my favorite focal lengths, which is around that 70 to 80 millimeter to get that look. And Samsung just nails it perfectly. In this particular one, it takes it all the way. Now, what's interesting is this. In terms of taking portrait mode with the 5x dedicated zoom lens, Apple allows you to do that out of the gate. And it's that equivalent 120 millimeter that they're talking about. Wow, if you've got space and you can nail it, portrait mode with this 5x lens on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is incredibly good. Just look at it, right? The Pixel 8 Pro does not allow you to do that. It does not allow you to use the dedicated 5x zoom lens to do portrait mode. But what you have to be aware is that you can actually add the portrait blur after the fact in post on the Pixel 8 Pro, as well as on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. You can see it in the 5x, in the 10x zoom, right? You can add these. Now, with the Pixel, it seems more consistent, equally as consistent as Apple's new next generation portrait mode, where when you take a normal picture and it recognizes and captures the depth information, you can make it a portrait picture after the fact without going into portrait mode and reduce the blur and do all of that, right? It seems equally as consistent on the Pixel 8 Pro in my findings. It's a bit more inconsistent on the Samsung, but it is something you can do. When it allows you to do it, you can do it. So you've got that level of flexibility to do that there. Now, these are the high resolution modes with me in the frame as a subject, and I definitely like the color processing of the Pixel, man. The detail is so good. Samsung, it seems like the colors are just all over the place when you're in the 50 megapixel mode, and the dynamic range completely goes out the window. And this is where some of the inconsistencies come in the high resolution mode on Samsung from my findings that I've found. And the iPhone doesn't do too bad. Again, colors of the skin tone being a bit darker than I would like, whereas the Pixel nails it, even though the color accuracy of things like the jacket and the scene is really on point on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But me as a subject, I prefer the Pixel 8 Pro. Now, again, you can see that with the Pixel 8 Pro, you can do the high resolution mode with the ultra wide, which brings a level of flexibility and clarity that's really, really good. So glad to see Google just going with 3 high resolution sensors at the back and giving you flexibility to take those high resolution mode on each of the sensors. And again, showing you that you can do this in the 50 megapixel JPEG mode in 5x on the Pixel 8 Pro, which is clutch. And again, as stated, you nail a 5x 50 megapixel JPEG with the Pixel 8 Pro. You can go on the edit, add portrait mode after, and trust me, it is some of the crispiest 5x portrait you're going to see. But again, it just requires a lot of things to be done in post. Okay, let's turn the lights down and look at some low light images between the Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Starting with the ultra wide. And again, the first set of sequences, we are doing this with no night mode. Why? Because shooting without night mode gives you the fastest capture speed and time compared to night mode. But again, we're going to see the difference and how things improved. So we'll start with the ultra wide. And again, all three of them hold up really well. I will say that the Pixel 8 Pro goes for a more preserved look of night and also has the least color shifting. The Galaxy S23 Ultra has the most color shifting with the magenta look around the lights, whereas the iPhone 15 Pro Max goes for a more warmer look, so it balances that well. But here, I do prefer the Pixel 8 Pro on the ultra wide. Now let's move over to the main wide sensor, and again, very consistent. The iPhone 15 Pro Max does look to have the brighter image overall, but the Pixel 8 Pro balances well and preserves the look of night. The S23 Ultra, again, the color shifting around the lights really distorts and just disturbs the look of the image that I don't like too much. So again, that's something to consider. Let's go into the 2x crop mode on the main wide sensor, and we can see that with the Pixel 8 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max, they do crop in that little bit more compared to the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and things again stay a bit more consistent. And I would say that with the iPhone and the Pixel 8 Pro, they almost balance out to be the same, but I like the look of the Pixel 8 Pro as it cools things down a little bit and preserves more detail. Let's now go into the 3x zoom mode, and definitely here is where the Samsung takes it. Again, the only thing to consider is the magenta color shift around the lights that I still don't like, and I hope Samsung fixes and addresses that soon. But overall, I will say that that's still the better looking image out of the three. Next is the 5x zoom mode, and again, you can see that the low light performance on a 5x zoom is still really good on a 15 Pro Max. Now again, something to be aware of, that it might have switched to the main camera lens and done a crop on the main camera lens. Didn't really verify to test it, but something to consider, because there's no way to tell the camera system that you want to still be using the main wide sensor or the zoom. So there's that to consider. Whereas with the Samsung, if you download the camera assistant app extension and go in there, you can actually stop him from auto selecting which lens to use. So if you're on a zoom, whether it's 3x or 10x, it's just gonna give you that lens, whether the low light performance is good or mediocre. And when we go to the 10x zoom, again, this is using the 10x periscope zoom on the S23 Ultra, hence why the low light performance, and I believe the aperture on that is like f4.9, so it's something to consider in that retrospect. And then you've got the 10x mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro, which I would say the iPhone is a brighter image, but again, Pixel 8 Pro is better balanced. Let's run it back, this time with night mode active with the iPhone 15 Pro Max and also Pixel 8 Pro and the S23 Ultra. And I'll definitely say the one that benefits the most in terms of improvement is the Samsung, but again, still at the cost of the color shifting. And I definitely prefer the balance of the Pixel 8 Pro, but the iPhone 15 Pro Max does really well, and it really improves on the ultra wide. The main camera sensor, again, you can see a lot of flaring when it comes to it because obviously the long exposure. But this particular round, I do prefer the look of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, followed by the Pixel 8 Pro, and then the Galaxy S23 Ultra. But overall, they're all great, if I'm going to be honest with you. If we move over to the 2x zoom mode on the main wide sensor where it's cropping, again, great improvements. Still the same consistency when it comes to colors. But again, in the order, I prefer the iPhone 15 Pro Max, then the Pixel 8 Pro, then the Galaxy S23 Ultra. But all three are doing a great job. Now, 5x mode versus the 3x mode, because again, when you're doing night mode, it just forces you into that particular situation. And while do they clean up really well, the iPhone is the one that really has cleaned up the best, followed by the Pixel 8 Pro. And then the dedicated 3x zoom lens is actually doing a better image in terms of the cleanness of the image compared to the Pixel 8 Pro. It's just the color shifting around the lights, again, that I'm not really too much of a fan of. But again, the iPhone 15 Pro Max really cleans up well. And the 10x, you saw compared to the original 10x to this, you know, it really does help it a lot more to be usable in low light on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, even though the color tinting is really, really warm. But again, no, you know, night mode really helps it on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Time for some selfies in low light. And I did the sequencing in a way where first it was taken with just a normal mode with no night mode, then night mode active, and then the front screen flash. And I sequenced the same things for the portrait selfie. But one thing to consider as a limitation on iPhones is that you cannot do portrait selfie and night mode together. This is not an issue on the Pixel 8 Pro and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. So in that case, when it comes to low light selfie photography, the Pixel 8 Pro and the Galaxy S23 Ultra really take it. And I prefer the Pixel 8 Pro because it does give you a wider field of view, and the skin tones are just much more consistent and accurate, which I always appreciate. And if you look at it, with the front screen flash is the best way that you can take low light selfies in portrait mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But again, I think the Pixel 8 Pro, though is quite overpowering, does give the best image and look with the front screen flash with portrait selfie. Last set of low light images with the rear cameras with me in the frame as the subject. And in this particular situation, man, all three actually do a really good job when it comes to the main 1X. I would definitely say that I prefer the overall look of the Pixel 8 Pro, then followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We'll move to the ultra-wide. Yep, the ultra-wide, I definitely say that in this particular situation, Pixel 8 Pro, and it's a toss-up between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. I prefer the colors and the look of the S23 Ultra, even though it is a softer image, whereas the iPhone it has more noise, but it does retain more detail. Next is the 2X mode. Again, Pixel 8 Pro holding up really well, followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And then we'll be going to the 3X mode, which is using a 3X dedicated zoom on the S23 Ultra. Pixel 8 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max are using a digital crop. Definitely say Pixel 8 Pro, then the Galaxy S23 Ultra, even though the low light performance on there on the 3X is a lot lower. And then followed by the 15 Pro Max, even though it is a lot more noisier and lacks certain detail. And this is the 5X zoom mode. Again, this is switching over with the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and obviously doing the digital crop on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. It's a tough one. I don't find either or any of them that usable in this particular situation. And where we see the difference maker is night mode. And wow, night mode with the Pixel 8 Pro looks solid. And I would definitely say that, followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But honestly, all three are good. I think it's really just down to which one you prefer the most. So let me know in the comment section below which one you like out of the three in this particular shot. If we go to the ultra wide, ultra wide cleans up really well. Galaxy S23 Ultra looks to have the brighter image. Then I'll say the look of the 15 Pro Max is actually more pleasing in this situation on ultra wide, whereas I feel like the colors on the Pixel 8 Pro kind of went off a little bit with the ultra wide with night mode. So just something to consider in that retrospect. In the 2X mode, definitely Pixel 8 Pro takes it, then the Galaxy S23 Ultra, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But I think all three in their own right are doing well. And the 3X mode here, you can see that this really helps the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. And I say that one looks the best, then followed by the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and then the Pixel 8 Pro. And then we can see in the 5X zoom mode, you can see that with the action, in this particular situation, I'll say the Galaxy S23 Ultra is looking the best, then followed by the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and then the Pixel 8 Pro in this particular situation. Now, we're going over to the 10X, and it's still not usable with night mode, so I wouldn't recommend using the 10X mode in night mode on all of these with either the dedicated zoom lens on the S23 Ultra or the crop using a 5X zoom lens on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, running it back, portrait mode. Again, without night mode active, as stated, with the Pixel 8 Pro, it does crop in at a 1.5x crop factor, but it does look clean. But I will say the overall look without night mode active, I will say the Galaxy S23 Ultra looks best, then followed by the Pixel 8 Pro, and then the iPhone 15 Pro Max. 2X mode, again, I think consistent. Galaxy S23 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro, then iPhone 15 Pro Max in terms of the looks. And then, again, with this, it just wasn't working, obviously, with the... And then when we switch to the 5X zoom mode on the 15 Pro Max, you can see that it does definitely fall apart. The 3X mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra is not bad, and the 2X mode on the Pixel 8 Pro is the best we could get, because zooming in any further just wasn't working, and it was only working up to the 2X in low light. Now let's turn night mode on. With night mode active, wow, the Pixel looks incredible. And I think it matches up well to the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Where I prefer the Galaxy S23 Ultra is just that it has got a wider field of view in a 1X compared to the crop on 1.5X. And also the iPhone cleans up really well in night mode. In this particular situation, when we go to the 2x with night mode active, I think things overpower a bit too much in the Galaxy S23 Ultra. I prefer the Pixel 8 Pro in this particular situation than the S23 Ultra. And then to be aware, night mode does not work in the 2x mode for portrait on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So something to be aware, it only works in the 1x mode if you want night mode in portrait mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So there's a limitation there. In this particular situation, again, still a limitation where you cannot use night mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max unless it's in a 1x mode. You've got the 2x mode and the 3x mode. The 3x mode on the Galaxy S23 Ultra looks clean. Wow, incredible work on that one, Samsung. Now, let's turn on the flash, and the iPhone has a very, very powerful flash. And the flash performance with portrait mode is the best way that you can get low light images with portrait on the rear cameras with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I would say that it's probably the one that wins it. But again, it's not that simple because the Pixel 8 Pro actually balances out well. And also the Galaxy S23 Ultra is holding its own really good. So this really could come down to which one you prefer. Again, we shifted to the 2x mode. The iPhone 15 Pro Max falls apart a little bit. Pixel 8 Pro holds its own actually as the best one. And then the Galaxy S23 Ultra does struggle a little bit with the flash. Now, 5x mode with the flash, it works, but it doesn't work that well when it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And again, same 2x mode, looks great on the Pixel 8 Pro, and something to consider in that retrospect when you're using a flash or portrait mode. Let's conclude things with the video performance, starting with the selfie camera. And I would say pound for pound, all three do a good job when it comes to the selfie camera. They all record up to 4K 60 frames a second on the selfie, which is great to see with stabilization. Couple of things to consider. The Pixel 8 Pro still doesn't have the ability to do cinematic or video portrait mode on a selfie camera in any way, shape or form. I was really expecting Google to add this and improve, but they just haven't. And it's just so much more robust on the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. As demonstrated, Galaxy S23 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max can shoot up to 4K 30 frames a second in video portrait mode. The Samsung Galaxy gives you great flexibility while you're recording, whereas the iPhone gives you great flexibility in post-production in the edit. So I would say that the selfie is definitely between those two. The iPhone still has this weird thing. If you're recording 4K 60 on a selfie, you lose all manner of dynamic range with just a lot of blown out highlights, whereas in 4K 30 it goes away. That problem isn't there on the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, even though the overall quality of video on the iPhone is really good. I would say that, yeah, the Galaxy S23 Ultra is very much the most consistent when it comes to the selfie performance, so take that into consideration. Final conclusion with the video performance with the rear cameras, and I will say that it's good to see Apple following in Google's footsteps by allowing you to switch between the lenses when recorded in 4K 60 FPS without stopping recording. This is something Google was doing from the Pixel 7 Pro last year, and it's great to see that Apple have adapted that. With the Pixel 8 Pro as well, again, still great flexibility to be able to do that in that retrospect and still allow you to do things like pause recording and continue on the same clip. Samsung is limited to that, but it does allow you to flip to the selfie. But Samsung offers the most flexible video recording experience when you're recording, especially in 4K 30 FPS. Switch between all the lenses, pause recording, take pictures, flip to the selfie, back to the camera. It's just so flexible. So well done, Samsung. I hope that in the Galaxy S24 series, when it comes out, you do allow us to switch between the lenses in 4K 60. It will allow you to have the most flexible video recording experience on any smartphone. And again, Samsung actually allows you to use 8K video, which is usable and it's not a gimmick, it's usable. Minimal crop, pretty much no crop, stabilization, dynamic range, colors, details is really, really good in that retrospect. Now, again, it is sad to see that video portrait mode, the background blur on the Pixel 8 Pro is limited to 1080p, 24 FPS only with no 30 FPS option for people to want, or 4K UHD, and there's pretty much no flexibility to change the blur. It's just tap to focus. It still felt like an afterthought, and I hope they really take it seriously because this shooting mode, it's really, really good and robust on the other two. Again, not showcased here, but Apple does allow you to shoot ProRes log, where you can have a flat profile, more dynamic range, record to SSD, where you can shoot up to 4K 60 with log and ProRes. And again, if you look at things like, the action mode on the iPhone compared to the active stabilization on the Pixel 8 Pro, and then the super steady on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Yeah, the Pixel's very much behind. It's still 1080p 30. You can only really do it on the 1x mode, which I believe is cropping in on the ultra wide, and a 2x mode. Whereas the iPhone 15 Pro Max, man, that one is just so robust. 2.8K up to 60 FPS, ultra wide, 1x, 5x, 2x, and even the Galaxy S23 Ultra. It's a 2.5K 1440p resolution, up to 60 FPS, ultra wide, and also the 1x mode. And a bit, it's just so much more robust. So considering that, pound for pound, is definitely probably video first on iPhone 15 Pro Max, followed by the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and the S23 Ultra wins in some cases. And the Pixel 8 Pro, I think the best thing is everything that's going to be coming later on in post with video boost and also night side video, which is not active at this time. So take that for what it is when it comes to the video performance. That is it with my ultimate camera comparison with the Pixel 8 Pro against the Galaxy S23 Ultra and also the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's a lot, I know, and if you did make it this far, make sure you put a fist bump emoji in the comments so I know you are a real one and you watched it all the way through to the end. Really appreciate your support. It takes a lot of work to do this, and I hope you enjoyed it equally as much as I enjoyed testing and finding out and bringing this to you. Hope you're all well. Catch you in the next one. Peace.